What's up, everybody? How we doing today? All right. I feel like, though, before we get started, I owe everyone an apology real quick. Why are you laughing? It's an apology. It's for allowing Logan to wear that jersey on stage. Yeah, a desecration before the Lord. And I know it was hard for many of you to engage in worship, having to look at that. But it's just proof, guys, we are a gracious church. We allow anyone to worship here. That's just our heart. However, we will be looking for a new worship pastor. So if you know anyone looking, let me know. No, give him all the grief he deserves, and I have it on good authority that he loves long, awkward hugs. And so grab him and hold him tightly and whisper in his ear, "The Bears are going to kill the Rams." Anyways, we are in week 2 of a series we kicked off last week called Operation. Don't know if you had a chance to play our life-sized Operation out there. I had some people asking me like, hey, where did you buy that? Where did that come from? A couple people in the church made that. Isn't that amazing? We got some talented people around here. But as I was walking through the church hallways this week, I was looking at the big old Cavity Sam, that's his name. And as I was looking and his expression, his face, it just kind of caught me off guard a little bit. And something hit me, something dawned on me that I had never realized before. He is wide awake during the operation. Like, you look at his face, that is the face of pure panic. That's the face of pure terror. And I'm like, yeah, I'd feel that way too if a bunch of kids were pulling at my internal organs while my eyes were open. Is that not everybody's worst nightmare? I've had surgery a handful of times. And anytime you go to have surgery, one of the things you do before the surgeon comes in is you talk to the anesthesiologist, and they're like, hey, we're going to do this and that. They ask you some questions, and they're like, are you okay with this drug versus the other? I'm like, bruh, give me all the drugs you got. Right? Whatever will kill me, then just dial it back one notch, because I don't want to feel anything, and I surely do not want to wake up. I think that's all of our worst nightmares. And so no wonder poor Cavity Sam has butterflies all up in his stomach. I think we would all, in the same scenario, be feeling the exact same way with that much terror. And we've all had that feeling before, haven't we? Butterflies in our stomach. When we're about to do something big or take a chance or maybe make a big decision, we kind of feel that fear, that uncertainty inside of us. I'll tell you, I'll be feeling that come 5:30 today, right before the Bears kick off, and I'm going to be hoping and thinking, I hope Ben Johnson gave him the halftime speech at the beginning of the game so we don't have to wait for the second half to play like a team that can win the game. And so that's what I want to talk about today. Not the Bears, of course. We could spend all day talking about the Bears, but what I want to talk about is what do you do when you have butterflies in your stomach? What do you do when you feel afraid? Now, first of all, you have to understand all of us feel fear. This is a human emotion. This is a core, part of the core human condition. However, even though all of us know what it's like to have fear, most scientists and researchers would say we're only born with 2 innate fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises, which means every other fear we have is learned. We learn it from culture, maybe outside influences, bad experiences. I mean, a few weeks ago, I got food poisoning. I ate some bad sushi, and I can tell you, I'll be afraid to eat sushi again. And the moral of the story is don't buy sushi at a gas station. I'm kidding, I didn't do that. It was from a restaurant. But I'm going to tell you, like I said, I'm going to have a little apprehension because of that bad experience. But we as people, we've learned to fear so well that there are now over 500 defined phobias, many of which we're familiar with, like arachnophobia, the fear of spiders. But there are now so many defined phobias that there's one called phobophobia, which is literally just the fear of fear. We have a fear of just being afraid. But consider this. If there are only 2 innate fears, and yet we have over 500 listed fears, that means 498 of the fears that we deal with as part of the human condition are optional fears. These are things that we don't have to deal with. That's 99.6% of all fear are things that we don't have to let impact our life. And we know for sure God doesn't want fear to ruin your life. God doesn't want fear to even to ruin your day. Look at this verse. This is Paul speaking to one of his apprentices, Timothy, and he says, for God has not given us what? A spirit of fear. That's not from God and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. Now, what this verse is not saying is, okay, we don't have a spirit of fear, and so go off and be reckless. This isn't saying let's go kiss tigers. Let's go climb buildings without ropes. That's not what this verse is advising us to do, because there are some fears that give us wisdom, that lead us to be cautious, to make a good plan, to make sure we're doing the right thing so that we don't go off and do reckless stuff. But what this verse is saying is don't let fear be the thing that wrecks your life. Things like the fear of failure or the fear of our inadequacies, all the reasons why we can't do something. The fear of being alone, the fear of rejection, the fear of the unknown, the fear of the worst case scenario, how we always somehow come up with the worst case of how something's going to end. All of those fears are learned behaviors, and God knows that those fears, they will shrink your life. They can derail his plans for your life. Now, that's not to say, though, if you have some of those fears, that they don't have real teeth, that they don't cause you to have some butterflies in your stomach. But we see, though, that God equips us with the power, the love, and the self-discipline to face our fears. Now, some of us, we think, okay, I can face my fears. And how we go about doing that is we think, okay, I'll face my fears. I'll do whatever my fear is if the butterflies flutter away. Like if I'm not scared, then I'll do it. If I no longer feel afraid, then I'll be able to accomplish whatever the goal or the task is. Then I'll do it. But here's the reality. Courage only exists in the face of fear. You're not brave if you do what's easy. You're not brave if you only do what comes naturally to you. Like today, I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to drive home, I'm going to pull into my garage. That requires no bravery. It's like, whoo, I figured out how to pull in my garage today. I was real brave. No. But for someone who has to drive to a cancer clinic and walk in to get chemotherapy, does that not require a lot of bravery? Yeah, you better believe it. And do they have butterflies in their stomach every time they go? Yeah. So what if instead of waiting that the butterflies just somehow flutter away, we as people can learn to embrace the butterfly, where you say, you know what? I may feel fear, but I don't have the spirit of fear. God hasn't made me this way, so I'm not going to let fear stop me or hold me back from that dream. I'm not going to let fear derail God's plan for my life or my kid's life. I'm not going to let fear stop me from that goal or that relationship or my future, which means I'm going to do it scared. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to have courage. I'm not going to wait for the butterfly to flutter away. I'm going to embrace the butterfly. And if there's anyone in Scripture who was willing to embrace the butterfly, it was a guy by the name of Peter. We all know Peter. He was one of the 12 original disciples. Well, Peter, he gets the opportunity to do what no person has ever done. And it's in this moment that he's afraid. He has some butterflies. But because he was willing to embrace the butterflies, Peter gets the reward that no one else would ever get. And so let's learn from his story today. We're going to dive in. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 14. We're going to start with verse 22. It says, immediately after this, let me stop here. What's the this? What's the this in this story? Well, the this is that Jesus had just performed one of his biggest miracles, the feeding of the 5,000. And so this was like a kind of an apex moment in Jesus' ministry. He had tons of crowds now following him. People are praising him. He's kind of at the height of his popularity. And so this happens. And then it says Jesus insisted that his disciples get back into the boat and cross to the other side. And that's going to become important here in a second, of the lake. And then he sent the people home. So it says, while he sent the people home, after sending them home, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. Let me pause here real quick. It's not really a part of my message, but I think it's important. Jesus himself knew after pinnacle moments, after stressful moments, after doing a lot of work, that he needed time to get a little R&R with God. That he himself needed a reset with God. That he himself needed to go to his Father and pray. And if Jesus knew he needed time to pray, then how much more do we need time to pray? Night fell while he was there alone. Meanwhile, the disciples were... So what happened? It says, well, they're in trouble, far away from the land. Remember, they got into the boat. They went to the other side of the lake, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves, fighting these heavy waves. Now, so Jesus says the disciples off, says he's chilling in the hills, he's praying. The storm, it now hits the lake. The disciples are in trouble. Understand some context here. About a third of the disciples were professional fishermen. These guys are good with boats. These guys are familiar with the lake. They're familiar with the water. And yet you get this picture that the storm is so intense that they can't handle the boat very well. The wind is blowing them all over the place. They're fighting waves. Water's coming inside the boat. They're trying to stay afloat. And as they're doing all of this, a fear sets in. And now you look at the context of this story and you understand that the only reason they're in this storm in the first place is because they obeyed Jesus. What did Jesus tell them to do? Go. Get in the boat. As a matter of fact, you look at the text, it even says he insisted. And why did Jesus insist that they go to the other side? Well, that's because they had to go to the other side. Well, why did they have to go to the other side? Well, they had just done this huge miracle, this feeding of the 5,000 on this side. But Jesus knew the work of the Lord, it's not done yet. My work isn't done. There's still more ministry to do. So they had to go to the other side of the lake to reach another group of people. And he wanted the disciples to get a head start. It's like, hey, we got to go over there. We did some awesome stuff here, but we're not done. We got to go over there. There's more work to do. And so the disciples, they obeyed because they're trying to serve Jesus. And I think there's many of us in the room right now. We kind of think that if we obey Jesus, do the things he asks us to do, that if we're willing to serve Jesus, then what we're actually signing up for is a lifetime of Caribbean cruises. That everything in our story should just be sunshine and roses. But that's not reality, is it? The storms hit our life. I mean, in this world, we'll have trouble. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5 that the rain falls on everybody. Storms hit everybody, the just and the unjust. The rain just falls. But we have to understand the storms are not meant to be punishment. For those who follow God, though, the storms can be preparation because they make you stronger. You see, Jesus can use the wind and the waves and the storms of your life to develop something greater in you, a deeper faith, a deeper trust in God, a deeper resiliency where you're not willing to quit, the ability to endure, the ability to press on. But when these storms hit, we often begin to question not only ourselves, but the things that God asked us to do. But just know that just because the storms or the wind or the waves or the obstacles are now entering into your story, that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It doesn't mean you're off course. You may be doing exactly what Jesus called you to do. He may have called you to serve, and you're doing it. And there's some obstacles and some tricky things with your schedule. He may have called you to give, and you're beginning to give, but you're questioning how much you're giving. He called you to help, and helping is requiring a lot of you, and you're obeying, and you're doing the things he asked you to do, and things get hard, and when things get hard, fear sets in. And you begin to wonder, Jesus, am I doing the right thing? Are you sure I was supposed to get in that boat? Jesus, are you sure I'm supposed to be out on that lake? Am I doing the right thing? And when those questions hit, the temptation that all of us experience is the temptation to quit, to put the boat back on the shore, to never get in the boat in the first place. Years ago, I went on vacation to South Haven, Michigan. Don't know if you've ever been there. It's on the other side of Lake Michigan, a very beautiful place and area to be on Lake Michigan, on the Michigan side. And when we were there, one of the things we did is we went to the harbor, and I remember standing out at the harbor, and I was looking at these beautiful boats. And I mean, there's just some sick boats out at the harbor at South Haven, and I was just talking about, man, look at that boat, and how pretty this one is, and how cool that would be, and all that stuff. And as I'm talking about it, there was just a stranger there, and he overheard me talking about these boats, and he said, hey, you know what's kind of sad about these boats? And I go, no, what's that? And he said, most of them will never leave the harbor. And I was like, really? I said, why? He said, because people are afraid to take them out to the open water. And I sat there and I thought, wow, you have these incredible boats made to be out in the open water, and here they are stuck on a dock because people are afraid to use them. And in the same way, Jesus has given us all these gifts and talents and resources and abilities and a testimony to go out onto the water, to go to the other side, to reach people that no one else is reaching, to do his work. And when you're willing to go out on the water and take a chance to do his work, when you're willing to obey, wind will come. Waves will come. The obstacles will come. And so what a shame it would be to have all of these blessings and gifts from the Lord and not be willing to use them because we're afraid of the storms, because we want to play it safe. And so we keep our life in a harbor somewhere, tied up to a dock, missing out on the adventure that God has for us, all because of fear. And so if and when the storms hit your life, do not let fear of the storm take you off the course by which Christ has called you. Don't let it stop you from the adventure that you know you're supposed to be on. Don't let it stop you from the ministry that you're supposed to be a part of. And I don't want you to miss this in the text. Just because you can't see Jesus in the storm, it doesn't mean he can't see you. He sees and he knows and he understands what's happening. Verse 25, let's keep going. About 3 o'clock in the morning, it's late at night, Jesus came toward them, walking on the water. When the disciples saw him walking on the water, what were they again? Terrified. And so in their fear, they cried out, "It's a ghost! What are we seeing right now? What's happening? Somebody's coming to kill us!" They're rubbing their eyes, they're freaking out, their heart's racing. You know what's interesting about this? Is this shows us something about the nature of fear that I think is really important for all of us to understand. And that's that fear does a great job of distorting reality. Fear does a great job of making us see ghosts. I mean, we've all experienced this. I'll give an example we're all familiar with. You hear a bump in the middle of the night, or should I say your wife does, and she elbows you in the ribs. Right? And so you got to get up and you got to investigate whatever it is that you hear. And so you grab a flashlight and a baseball bat and you're slowly wandering through the house. And then all of a sudden you see it in the corner, this silhouette. And you think something's about to kill you or eat you or worse. And so you flip on the light switch really fast to see what it is. And it's a coat draped over a chair. And you're like, woo! I thought I saw a werewolf. I thought something in my own house was going to eat me and kill me. But this is how fear works. It distorts the reality. It heightens our emotions. Now, some fear is rational. A snarling, angry tiger in your face, of course, should cause some fear. But most fears are irrational because they're actually rooted in a false perception, a distorted reality, or they're rooted in lies. Now, for a fear to be a rational fear, it has to be two things. It has to be both present and potent. Present and potent. So think of a rattlesnake. If a rattlesnake slithered into the room right now, someone would say, "It's a rattlesnake!" And what would happen? We'd shout, we'd run, people would be diving up on stage, chairs would get flung across the room, some of y'all be on the chairs, we would freak out. And to some degree, that would be justified because that snake is present, it's in the room, and it's potent. It has a bite. And so that would be a kind of something that would be a natural fear reaction. But now you look at this picture. And as we look at this picture, there are some of us in the room, we look at this and we get a little uneasy feeling. Even just looking at the picture of the snake makes us feel some fear. Is this snake potent? Yeah, it's potent, but it's not present. So there's no reason to fear because it's not in our proximity right now. Now, if a garter snake came into the room, like a little itty bitty tiny little baby snake. Now, some of us would say it's a snake and we'd still jump up on chairs, but we wouldn't need to. It's present, but it's not potent. As a matter of fact, years ago, we had one in our basement of our house, and Luke, he was pretty little, and he just came upstairs. He's like, "Dad, there's a big worm in the basement." He didn't know any different. He didn't know what it was, so I went down there, and sure enough, there's that snake, and I grabbed it, and we put it in like a little Coke bottle and took it out to the backyard. But he wasn't scared of it. And rightfully so, because it was essentially just a big worm. It was present, but it's not potent. It can't hurt you. The reality is most of what keeps us up at night is not both present and potent. We're actually afraid of ghosts. We're afraid of things that are imaginary, things that can't hurt us. We're ascribing power to things that they don't have. And so we tend to tie ourselves in knots doing the whole what if game. Well, what if that spider bites me and it burrows into my skin, into my brain, and out my eye? Or what if a zombie apocalypse comes and I lose my children to zombie apocalypses and there's my child, but now my child's a little zombie? What if, what if, what if? We play all of these what if scenarios. And do you know what a what if scenario is? It's chasing ghosts. And so a fair question to ask when we feel afraid is this: is what I'm fearing both present and potent? And if not, do not let fear fill in the blanks with lies or mess with your head or stop you from doing the thing that you know you're supposed to do. However, if the fear is present and potent, the disciples shouldn't have been afraid of ghosts, but there was a storm. Was the storm not present? Was the storm not potent? So if something is present and potent, well, then let's just keep reading. Matthew 14, verse 27, it says, now Jesus spoke, and that's important, to them at once. And what does Jesus say? So he's standing out in the water, and he's yelling back at the boat, and he says, don't be afraid, he said. Take courage, I am here. And all throughout the scriptures, whenever people feel afraid or they're taking a chance or they're doing something risky for God or they're unsure of themselves, you see some kind of iteration of this command. Don't be afraid, fear not, take heart, have courage, be courageous, be strong. Some iteration, and that's what's happening here. And Jesus now speaks, and his voice now carries over the water. He says, don't be afraid. But notice, he doesn't calm the storm. He doesn't change their circumstances in that moment, but he can calm the storm in us when our focus is on him and when we hear his words, when we know his truth, when we know his promises in our life. Because when you focus on Christ, you're able to see and know and understand something. That first of all, he's omnipresent. And second of all, he's omnipotent. Or I could say it this way, he's omnipotent. He's omnipresent and he's omnipotent, which means he is more present and more potent than anything we could ever fear. In that storm, the most powerful object that existed in that storm was not the wind. It was not the waves. The most powerful object in the storm was Christ himself. He's the greatest force in any storm you'll ever face, which makes him the ultimate fear object. And that's why Scripture tells us, and you see it all throughout the Old Testament, that the fear of the Lord is wisdom. The fear of the Lord is wisdom. Does that mean we should be afraid of him because he could smite us? That's not what the intention of that. I mean, he could, but that's not the intention of that, and that's not in the nature of God. What that verse is telling us when we see that all throughout the Bible is it means we should have a deep reverence for his power, a deep reverence for his capability, a deep reverence for his knowledge that he knows, that he sees, that he understands. He sees the bigger picture. It's not chaotic to him. It may be chaotic to us. It may be a storm to us. It's not chaotic to him. That we have a deep reverence for his leadership, how he wants to lead and guide us. And so when we trust that he's present and that he's potent, even when we feel the butterflies, we can have great wisdom that helps us discern what we should do. And we can have great courage that gives us the strength to take the next step. But we don't need calm seas. That's not what we need. We just need to hear his clear voice. And when his voice is clear, it gives us a strength to embrace the butterfly. And it makes us ready to face the storm and to take that next step. Verse 28. Then Peter called to him, Lord, if you're not a ghost, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water. And I love this because Jesus isn't asking for Peter isn't asking for calm water, is he? He's just asking for permission to come. Do you think he had butterflies in his stomach? Yep. Yes, come. Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water towards Jesus. If it's you, if you are who you say you are, you tell me to come. Yeah, it's me. Come on. What are you doing? Let's go. Come. I mean, in this verse, I mean, the Bible, it's like, oh yeah, and he walked on water. What? Imagine that. I mean, this is a Sunday school story. We're familiar with this story, but imagine the moment right now. Right? The 11 disciples are looking at Peter like, Peter, what are you doing right now? Don't talk to the ghost. We don't talk to ghosts. What are you doing? You can't walk. You can't go out on the water. There's a storm out there. Did you not see the wind? Did you not see the waves? What are you thinking? Are you insane? Just stay in the boat. Don't do this. Be smart about this. But then one trembling leg after another slowly goes over the edge of the boat. And Peter, he braces himself on the side of the boat, and a toe kind of dips into the water, and he expects the toe to go under the water, but what does he find? A firm foundation, solid ground. And then Peter does what he's done a million times in his life, walk, but on a surface that no one had ever walked on before other than Christ. He's now walking on water. Did he look like a toddler taking their first steps with that joy on their face, but shaky and wobbly legs? Kind of in this moment. Absolutely amazing. Everybody's mind has to be blown by what they see. Now, guys, I've read this story hundreds of times in my life. And every time I look at this story, do you know what gets me? I don't wonder why Peter walked on the water. Jesus said, come. Jesus gave him the ability. Jesus said, do it, and he did it. So I don't wonder why Peter walked on the water. I wonder why the other 11 didn't. Don't you think they'd have FOMO? You know what FOMO is, right? That's what the kids are saying these days. That fear of missing out. Don't you think the fear of missing out on the miracle would be stronger than the wind and the waves? That they wouldn't want to miss out on this moment to be standing on open water with Jesus? But what did they do? Well, they stayed in the boat. They didn't take the step. And because they stayed in the boat, they missed out on the moment. They missed out on the miracle. And I can't help but wonder, like I said, I've read this lots of times. Did they regret that? Did they regret that? And the reason I ask that is I know I would have. I know I would have regretted that moment, that I let that slip by because of fear, that Jesus was giving me the strength and the ability to do something and I didn't do it because I was afraid. And I think what this shows us is that even among people who follow Jesus, these are people who follow Christ, these are his disciples, that there will always be some people who are willing to step out in faith. There's always going to be people who will trust and obey and do the things that Jesus calls us to. And there are others who will want to. They'll want to, but they won't. And what's the differentiating factor? Fear. I think there are some people who will say, I would do it if the butterfly flutters away, if I had some more certainty, if I was sure of what the future held, if I knew exactly what the next step was. I would do it if the butterfly leaves. And then there are others who are willing to simply embrace the butterfly. I love the way author Max Lucado says it. He says, when fear shapes our lives, safety becomes our God. When safety becomes our God, we worship the risk-free life. Can the safety lover do anything great? Can the risk-adverse accomplish noble deeds for God, for others? No. The fear-filled life cannot love deeply. Love is risky. They cannot give to the poor. Benevolence has no guarantee of return. The fear-filled cannot dream wildly. What if their dreams sputter and fall from the sky? The worship of safety emasculates greatness. No wonder Jesus wages such a war against fear. Wow. What an amazing quote. And it's so true because Jesus knows what fear is. It distorts reality. It's rooted in false perception. It's rooted in lies. All fear is a thief. And so we should not let fear be a bandit that wants to rob us of the waters that Jesus wants us to walk on, the adventure that he's calling for us, because fear, it wants to steal your dreams. Fear will pilfer your passion. Fear will rob you of the joy of life. And all fear will leave in the wake of your life is a bunch of regret, a bunch of what ifs, because fear won't strive to get a better education or start a new career path. Fear won't fight for a struggling marriage or pull a family out of poverty. Fear won't stand up to bullies or stand up for people in the margins. Fear won't love people of different races. Fear won't share its faith with others. Fear won't pray for lost neighbors or coworkers or classmates. Fear won't try new things. Fear won't overcome excuses. Fear won't step into a new community at church because fear doesn't walk on water. Only faith does. Only faith walks on water. However, it takes courage. It takes courage to take a step of faith. But our faith will rise when our focus is on Christ, when we know and hear his word and his promises that they're true. Not when we focus on all the wind or the waves, but when our eyes and ears are set on him. It's in those moments when our focus, our ears are tuned in to him, that the Lord can begin to call greatness out of us. However, even when we step out in faith, fear doesn't give up too easily. Verse 30. But when he, Peter, saw the strong wind and the waves, he was, what was he? Afraid, terrified, and began to sink. Save me, Lord, he shouted. And Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. You have so little faith, Jesus said. Why did you doubt me? And what this verse is showing us is the power of what we focus on. You see, what we focus on, it actually will fuel what we feel. And this is true in kind of all things life. But if we fixate on our fears, all the obstacles, the wind and the waves, if we fixate on what seems to be present and potent, then fear will fuel our feelings. But when we remember, even in the face of our fears, who's omnipresent and omnipotent, then faith can fuel our feelings. But even when we walk by faith, we're going to trip up sometimes. It's bound to happen. It's not because we were willing to step out. Usually we trip up because we stop moving. I like to mountain bike. I don't do it as much as I'd like to, but I try to get out and do it a handful of times a year. And one of the things I've learned from mountain biking is when you're going down like technical trails or really tricky trails, really the key is to trust the bike. And the key is just to keep moving, keep your eyes forward, to not lose momentum. Because if you look at every rock and every root and every branch, everything hanging over your head, what happens you tense up. You start to move too slow and you get a little bit too cautious. And when you get too cautious, that's actually when the problems come in. Because the worst falls I've ever had are when I get too slow, I lose momentum, and I tip over. I took my eyes off what's forward, and I start looking and veering off into part of the trail that I'm not supposed to be in. Because I didn't trust that the bike was going to do what the bike was made to do, hold me up and keep me moving forward. Guys, faith works the exact same way. Faith is all about forward momentum, which means we don't turn around and look at our past. You don't look at all of the reasons why you can't do the things that are out in front of you. You don't look down at your feet. You don't look down at the waves. You don't look down at the obstacles. All of the reasons that things are hard, or all the things that are going to trip you up, or all of the challenges that you have to overcome, you don't look up. You don't look up into the future. You don't play the what if game. You don't go out chasing ghosts, right? You just, what do? You look straight ahead. You keep your eyes fixed on Christ. Faith is about forward momentum. Jesus, I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to take one step at a time. I may not go super fast, but I ain't going to stop moving. And trusting he will guide and lead me every step of the way. And what I love about this story is, you know what, Peter, he sank. He sank, but he wasn't sunk. You understand there's a big difference, right? He sank, but he wasn't sunk. And let's not miss the fact that he did it. He walked on water. Can anyone else boast that they walked on water? Can anyone else make this claim? He did it, which I'm telling you, the regret of not trying is going to be way worse than the pain of tripping up. Because failure, it doesn't disqualify you. Failure is just a great teacher. It just helps you get better. It helps you get stronger. And even when our faith falters, his grace never lets go. Notice in the text it says, Jesus immediately grabbed him. Jesus is right there when we trip up to lift us up. It's okay if you trip sometimes. Some of you need to hear this. You stumbled on your journey. It's okay. Jesus is not saying, I'm done with you. No. He's right there saying, come on, get back up. Now, notice he gets him back up, and what's Jesus do? Coaches him back up too. Hey, man, come on, Peter. You were doing it. You had faith. You were walking on water. Those other 11, they weren't walking. You were doing it. What happened? Why did you doubt me, man? If I say you can do it, you just got to trust me next time. You got to believe. He coached him up because faith, right? It doesn't die just because of fear. Fear is just an interruption to it. It's not a death blow. And then catch this. They get back in the boat. And when they get back in the boat, you don't see the disciples scolding Peter. Dude, that was embarrassing. You walked for like 2 steps and then you started sinking. Man, what a loser you are. Now, you don't see any of that. Do you see Peter hanging his head? No, Peter doesn't even hang his head. They're all just in awe of who Jesus is and what he was able to do. Look at this text. It says, when they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped. That's just a little footnote in the text. Jesus' foot hits the boat, wind stops, waves calm down. And then the disciples worshiped him. Who is like you? No one. Who can calm the wind and the waves? No one. Who is the God of the storms? Only you. Who can do the impossible? You can do the impossible. You just fed 5,000, and now I just saw you. You were walking on water. Peter, we were walking on water. It's amazing. They're worshiping him. You really are the Son of God. You're amazing. They worship because they knew the wind and the waves and the storms really do bow to him. They worship because they realized that ordinary people can do the impossible when you worship an extraordinary God. And so let me ask you a question. What would you do? Not if the butterfly flutters away. What would you do if you were willing to embrace the butterfly? What are the waters that Jesus is calling you out to? What's the other side? Where's the work, the ministry that you're supposed to do? Who are the people that you're supposed to reach? What's the chance you're supposed to take? What would you do? Not if the butterfly flutters away, but if you had the courage and the bravery to embrace the butterfly. As we wrap up, I want to show a video. It's a 4th grade girl, and she's about to take a big ski jump, and I think I showed this literally like 7 or 8 years ago, a long time ago. So some of you may remember this if you were around back then, and I love this video because I think it personifies the reward that we get when we let faith triumph over the fears in our stories, and we're willing to step into the unknown. So take a look.
I'll be fine.
Have fun.
I'll do it. Well, here goes something, I guess. Oh, okay, you can do this. I'm gonna jump.
You got it.
Whoa, my ski's slipping off.
Just remember, never snowplow, okay?
No snow plows.
Just keep it straight and you'll be fine.
Okay.
Same thing you do on the 20.
Straight. Do you go faster on the in run?
Little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Is it any steeper, do you think? Not much?
Same steepness, it's just longer.
Well, just longer. Just longer. Just a bigger 20, that's all.
Yep. Have
It's a
fun.
bigger 20. Go ahead. You got this. I got it.
It's fine. You'll be fine.
Okay. Here
The longer you wait, you'll be more scared.
I go. just the suspense at the top at the first time freaks you out. That's the only thing. It's so fun. Huh? 60 seems like nothing now. Whoa!
I love that video so much. She gets a little cocky at the end. She's like, 60's nothing now. I've done one jump. I'm pretty much a professional. I'm going to sign up for the Olympics. It's cool, whatever. Oh, it's such a beautiful video because you see the joy, the exhilaration that comes after she was willing to step out. Because there was fear. Now, I'll tell you, 99% of people will not take a ski jump like that, which means most people won't get the joy of what it feels like to fly through the air. She got the reward for being willing to take the risk. But did you catch something? When she was up top, who was standing right there coaching her up? Her father. You can do this. You've done this. You know how to do this. You have the ability. He said, don't slow down. Don't snowplow. Don't lose forward momentum. You just keep your eyes straight ahead. You just keep going. You can do this. I believe in you. And she gets the courage. And she goes, here I go. And then she leans in and she takes that step. And then you see the joy and the reward and the excitement. Well, I want you to know in the same way, your Father will not call you out to do something that he does not think you can do. If he's saying, take that step, trust me, believe, have faith, don't be afraid, take heart, have courage. He's calling you out onto the water. Why? Because you can do it. And some of you need to hear that today. You can do what he's asking you to do. You do not have to give in to your fears. You have to keep faith, keep forward momentum, keep your eyes on him. But at some point, you can wait for the butterfly to flutter away, but that point may never come. Or you embrace the butterfly and you say, here I go. And you do the thing, whatever that thing is. So what joy is fear trying to rob from you today? And you're like, nope, not anymore. Be willing to take that step. Be willing to live a life of adventure. And one thing I can promise you is Jesus always meets us out on the water. And even if you trip up, even if you fail, I can assure you his grace will never let you go. And so we're going to sing a song. It's an oldie but a goodie. Some of you are familiar with this song. And as we sing this song, let's make this a declaration of faith today. Go ahead and stand to your feet as we sing.